Welcome to Pro Practice, your guide to piano mastery. I'm Josh Wright, and today's episode is based on The Sick Doll or My Doll is Ill. I've seen both titles used from Tchaikovsky's children's album, Opus 39. And this is a lovely little piece. I'll play a few measures to jog your memory if you've heard it before. Repeats. It's only one page in this edition. This is a Russian edition. And it's very accessible. So whether you are just looking for a very good piece to start working on as a beginner, mid to late beginner, this would be a wonderful one because it's going to teach you a lot about how to make very gradual pedal changes. It's going to teach you how to vary your dynamics on repeats and similar figures. There's so many repetitious figures in here that we want to make sure that each of those is different. It's going to teach you about voicing, how to bring out certain lines. And we're going to not only bring out the top line in the right hand, but we'll also try voicing some of the left hand lines where he marks tenuto marks there. The tenuto marks are just the little horizontal marks above a note, and they can have various meanings like hold it full value, or sometimes it can mean to accentuate it in a certain way. And we're also going to talk about note values, and I know I mentioned this already, but variety of dynamics can also involve a little bit of rubato, so that pushing and pulling of time, slight, but because we don't want to get too crazy because the figures are so constant. But we're going to go over all of that today to help you become as efficient as possible in your practice sessions. We'll start with the very basics of how I want you to be, or how you should be pedaling this. And there is some subjectivity with how clean you can get this pedal, how precise you want it to be. Let me show you an extremely clean pedal. Okay, now he writes a rest here, so we're going to want, on the next measure, so we're not going to want to hold this G through. He wants that breathlessness in it, and I think that can accentuate what the title is saying, My Doll is Ill, or The Sick Doll. You know, there's kind of this breathlessness to it. And you could think of the imagination of a child. I have a little 3-year-old, and she will come up to me and say things like this, like, oh, my stuffed animal is sick. You need to make sure he feels better. Take its temperature. And, you know, it's very cute. And you have to imagine playing this piece in the mind, how a child may perceive it. I remember studying at the University of Michigan. I was talking with one of my professors, and he said, you know, Schumann's Kindersehnen, album for the young. And by the way, Tchaikovsky wrote this. The subtitle is 24 Simple Pieces a la Schumann. And he had expressed sentiments for wanting to write a collection for young people. And I believe he dedicated it to his nephew. He said something to the effect of, oh, tell Bobik that this is dedicated to him. Of course, he won't know what dedicated means. But he will look at all these notes and think an entire symphony has been dedicated to him. So there is a lot of love and genuine innocence in this set. And one of my teachers at Michigan said, just because it's written for children doesn't mean they're kids' pieces, meaning that this isn't just for kids to play. Seasoned professionals play this, and surely one of my favorite recordings is Mikhail Pletnev playing this. I remember in a lesson one time with Sergei Babayan, or maybe it was an interview that I read that he did, he said, I remember fondly I think his dad took him to the Tchaikovsky International Piano Competition the year that Pletnev won, and he said, I was just mesmerized. And Babayan later went on to study with Pletnev. And so I know it's just a little background to the piece, but I want to give you the sentiment. So even if you're an adult playing this, even if you're a professional pianist wanting to program these wonderful little pieces, no matter what level you're at, try to get into that character of childlike innocence as you play this, because I think it will really enhance it, really make My Doll is Ill a reality of what a child must feel for something they care so deeply about. As adults, we're like, oh, well, they don't have feelings, it's just a toy. But as a child, that toy can mean so much to them. And so if you're an adult and you have children, you may even think of my child is ill and how much you would care and love for them. So let's start talking about shaping now. I talked about pedaling. I didn't even get to the clean pedal. Let me do the clean pedal thing. Okay. That's pretty good. It sounds good. So you're just changing, you're making sure everything's clean. But beyond that, if you round your pedal slightly, so you come off in your hand, but then I'm going to play this note, and then my pedal comes off gradually. Off. 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 So I'm kind of delaying it. But what I'm doing in my hand is I'm holding those note values, their full value, so that even if you came off your pedal a little too late or a little too early, you're not going to chop anything or make anything sound premature. So let me show you a really bled out pedal. Like when I say bleed the pedal, I'm talking about like watercolors. You know how colors can bleed into each other and kind of mix like that. So see how delayed that is? So, and it may even be hard to hear on this microphone. It's even kind of hard to hear just when you're playing it in the room, unless you're like right next to the piano, but it has this magical effect. So rather than that cleanliness, off. Experiment with this. And I want to talk just a moment about being a beginner or having this piece be your appropriate level. Don't for 1 second think, oh, I can't bleed my pedal like that. I can't do that, refined pedal movement. I'm just a beginner. Stop thinking like that. You absolutely can. And the reason I teach all of these more advanced, they shouldn't be even labeled as advanced, but a lot of people consider these pedaling techniques more advanced. The reason I'm teaching these in pretty much a beginner tutorial is if you get thinking about this stuff at this level when you're playing these, if you're a professional pianist, watching this tutorial and you're just playing this for fun and you wanted a couple pointers or something, I don't know why you'd be watching this tutorial if you're a professional pianist, but even if you are, you're going to know all these pedal techniques. But as a beginner, it's so important for you to start to refine your palette with these different ways of manipulating sound. Because I've had students bring this to me. And just within a few minutes of showing a student how they can manipulate the sound, the imagination is awakened. So that pedal bleeding is the first thing I want you to start thinking about after you've learned the notes and the rhythm. By the way, it's it can be very deceiving. This almost looks, if you see 2/4 time, you're not going to make this mistake. But I've had students do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Put it in 3/4 time. Don't do that because it's just an eighth rest before your first left hand dotted quarter. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. So just watch that counting. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is dynamics and how we can have a nice dynamic variety, because you don't want to make every one of these figures sound the same. Even if you're voicing that top line really nicely, it's just going to start to sound vertical every single time. So one of my favorite things